Hello, I'm Dale Ander, and I'm a member of the Control Center Development and Support Team. Welcome to a series of videos on IBM Sterling Control Center Monitor, where I'm going to introduce you to some of the key capabilities of the product. If you don't know, Control Center Monitor can be used to track key actions and activities that are occurring across your B2B and file transfer infrastructure. Tune into other videos to get more details, but in this one, I'm going to cover a key capability of Control Center Monitor called Service Level Criteria, or SLCs. Let's get started. So the SLC function within Control Center is handled by the SLC service. The SLC service is able to emit events when certain processes or steps within processes do or don't occur by a certain time, don't end by a certain time, or don't run within a specified duration, either too little or too long. If you don't know, Control Center also has what's called a rule service, and you're able to set up rules that watch for events that are generated by Control Center. These events come from data gathered from the servers that Control Center is monitoring and from within Control Center itself. And these rules have criteria that specify certain elements within the event. And an element might have a process name or a step name or a submitter name or a server name and more. But these rules watch for events, and when they're triggered by an event that matches their criteria, they take an action. Now, if you want to know if a process doesn't run by a certain time, well, Control Center wouldn't have gotten an event that said something didn't happen from a monitored server, but you can use the SLC service and program it to know when certain things are supposed to happen, and if they don't, the SLC service will emit events that you can subsequently write rules to watch for. So what you do is you define service level criteria in SLC for everything that's supposed to happen, process-wise or transfer-wise. And these SLC criteria will include, whatever you want, the process name, the step name, maybe the destination file name, maybe the mailbox name, you name it, and you associate a calendar with these things. And if they don't happen, or if they take too little time, or if they take too long to run, then the SLC service will emit events for that. And if you have the right rules in place, you can be notified when your processes don't end by the time they're supposed to, or your transfers don't occur. Defining your service level criteria, or SLCs, is admittedly a complex operation. There's quite a bit of parameters to define, set up, and if you get something a little bit wrong, remember, computers do what you tell them, they don't do what you meant, and they end up not working correctly. But when you have things set up perfect, SLCs work well. There's just really two parts to an SLC, even though they are complicated to define. There's the schedule, and then there's the match criteria. The schedules, there's two types. There's a duration schedule and calendar schedule. Duration schedules, they set up a minimum and maximum range. So if your process takes too little time or too much time according to the duration schedule associated with it, then the SLC service will generate events for that. You can also have what's called a calendar schedule. Calendar schedule defines when things are supposed to happen as opposed to how long or they can take. You could specify a start range for something or an end range or both. Now, know that most people want to know when something finishes. So normally you'll just specify an end range in your calendar schedules. And for both calendar and duration schedules, there's also this thing called an overall calendar, and it tells the SLC service which days I should be watching for the events that you define as a part of the match criteria in your SLCs. Now, the match criteria in the SLCs tell the SLC service what events correspond to this particular SLC. They will always include a monitored server name, they'll always include a process name, and then optionally you can have like a destination file name or a step name or a mailbox name, and on and on. This match criteria is used to tell the SLC service what events are pertinent to this particular definition. So there are many types of SLCs you'll come to learn when you go to set one up. There's standard, wildcard, workflow, and simple. Standard SLCs are used when you just want to specify like a process name and you know the full process name, and a destination file name if you know the full file name, and you have a schedule. I think the only other parameter match criteria wise you can specify in a standard SLC is the submitter of the process. Wildcard SLCs are like standard SLCs. Same kinds of criteria can be specified, but you don't have to know the full value to watch for in the match criteria. In other words, you could say any process that starts with the letter P would match my SLC definition. Workflow SLCs, they are the most flexible type of SLC you can use. I say they're the most flexible because you could specify pretty much any match criteria you want in them. Some things that you can't specify in standard and wildcard, including like a mailbox name. So if you don't want to find out after you get started when you're defining your standard or wildcard SLC that it doesn't do what you need it to, just start with workflow SLCs. They're what I recommend you use. And besides having the most flexibility as far as the match criteria that you can specify, workflow SLCs let you specify multiple things that must happen by a certain time and or within a certain duration. And when I say multiple things, maybe you have a process where something goes into a mailbox and must be processed, pulled out of a mailbox within 30 minutes. You would have to use a workflow SLC to set something like that up. The only other kind of SLC that you can define is a simple SLC, and they are simple to set up. Under the covers, a simple SLC is a workflow SLC that only allows you to specify one thing. Workflow SLCs have what are called milestones, and each milestone must occur for a workflow to be complete. Simple SLCs are like a workflow SLC, but they only have a single milestone in them, and they have limited criteria that you can specify for your